Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dzień dobry Państwu. Dzisiaj przychodzimy do Państwa z takim nowym tematem lokalizacji, który jak rozmawiałam z organizatorami tego wydarzenia, powiedzieli mi, że to taki niszowy temat, więc chcielibyśmy Państwu powiedzieć, że nie jest to niszowy temat, jest to temat dla każdego i zapraszam Państwa do wysłuchania prezentacji. So now I will switch to English, so everybody can understand us. Today we will speak about what location means for us as average users, average citizens, people that use smartphones every day. And I have invited very interesting guests here with me, sitting here, which I will present later, and they will comment their own experiences and how they work to get better location. My name is Justyna. I'm working at the GSA. GSA is a governmental agency. We are part of European Union, and we are responsible to promote and operate the Galileo system, which is satellite navigation system very similar to American GPS. So, looking at the specifications of the phone that you can find on any website, and this is a very randomly chosen phone, I was wondering what you normally look at when you buy a new phone. Most of the people look at the screen size, look at the brand, look at the quality of camera, but I would like to ask all of you, has anybody looked ever at this line? So I see the navigation engineers here, they raise the hand, but I would say most of the people, they never look at this line. And this session is all about why you should actually look at this line. So if you buy your new phone and you want to know what is the best in this GNSS GPS area, you should look at two things. First, multi-constellation. Why you should have more than GPS? Because GPS has only 24 satellites and you need at least 4 to be located. And if you are in the city, and you have half of the sky basically hidden by buildings or you are under trees, you don't always see enough satellites to have a good quality location. But there is no problem because there is already Russian GLONASS, there is already Chinese Beidou, there is already European Galileo. So in total, you have now like 80, 90 satellites flying there and ready to help you to have a good navigation. Today already there are phones using 4 constellations and they are the top notch to provide the best location services. And the second thing that you should look at is the frequency. So today all the consumer applications, devices, they have one frequency. But if you have a second one, you can go even below 1 meter level accuracy for your applications. And our guest today will speak about that. But why would you actually want to have more accuracy? If you ask an average citizen, they are usually quite happy with the accuracy they have today. They are able to go from point A to point B with typical navigation in the car. It's true, but the location that is provided by GNSS is not always what you see, because there is a lot of algorithms, map matching techniques, and other support functions that do not really show the real GNSS GPS accuracy. So today, maybe the accuracy is enough, but tomorrow, if we look at applications, for example, within augmented reality, you will need much more accuracy to have interesting creative applications. Here I'm giving just 3 examples. So if you look at the application that is actually working now in Warsaw, there is an app where you can go with your mobile, look at the camera view and see which apartments are for rent. And in augmented reality mode, you can see what is inside, what is the price, and so on. If you don't have enough accuracy, you cannot know which apartment that is. Then you can, when you build a new building, you can visualize this building in an existing environment, in the real environment. And this you can only do when you have good level of accuracy. And of course, virtual gaming using location is a new trend as well. This is a case study of Think Near. They wanted to provide location-based advertising for local branches of banks. And they sent location-based advertising to people within this geofenced area. And after the campaign, they measured who actually received the ad, and they figured out that 86% of the people were actually outside of the geofence area. So the accuracy of their location campaign, their advertising campaign, was not the best. And last but not least, all the applications within Internet of Things, applications of smart mobility, including autonomous cars, they will require more accuracy. Because if a car is driving without a driver, it needs to know precisely where it is. So here I also copied a few comments that are listed below the Uber application. And the most comments that you can see is that the taxi driver couldn't find me. I was not able to set up my position. So if you don't have all these supporting map matching tools, then the real position is not always perfect. But I have good news for you. So today I have invited 3 industry representatives to share their experiences and actually tell you that there is already like a silent revolution happening in all your devices, and we are prepared to deliver the great, much more accurate location for you. So I would like to present Mr. Manuel de Castillo from Broadcom, that is here representing the chipset industry. Mr. Ed Parsons from Google, that is here speaking in the name of Android operating system. And Mr. Kamil Grondys from Samsung, representing the handset level, will join us in a few minutes. So, Manuel, Broadcom is, I would say, a leader in GNSS chipset technologies. Broadcom chip is used in the latest phones, including top brands. And you were one of the first that have introduced multi-constellation, and now you are the first presenting the chipset with double frequency. So when these new features can be accessible by users, and what does it really mean for an average person?
Thank you, Justyna. Well, first of all, Broadcom has a track record of innovation in GNSS, as Justyna was saying. We were initially supporting GPS. We started supporting all the other constellations, GLONASS, Beidou, Galileo, and so we have a passion for innovation. And our latest contribution now is a very cool thing. Every satellite transmits not only the basic frequency, the basic signal, which is called L1 or E1, but also a secondary signal, which is more complex. Potentially, you can extract more accuracy from it, and it's the L5 or E5 signal from Galileo. So we are the first ones implementing a chip for mass market that not only uses the basic frequency L1, but also the more accurate signal L5 or E5. So we're dealing with every handset vendor, specifically with Samsung too, which are good customers of us, and we will eventually have this chip in the market, and we will provide this extra accuracy to the handsets.
Okay, and Ed, you have revolutionized the world last year by allowing raw measurements coming from satellites to get to the application layer. So the application developers will not only see the final coordinates, but also will be able to see all the basic data coming from satellites. What was the reason for that, and what does it mean for developers?
Thanks, Justyna. I guess the development is like many things that often we do at Google, in that initially a technical capability emerges and we think, well, why shouldn't we do this? Why shouldn't we have access to this in many ways, a more complex signal, but in many applications, a much more precise location is going to be very valuable to you. And you know, let's be honest, for probably 90% of the applications that we talk about as consumers, a precise location isn't very important in terms of, you know, finding your local Starbucks or being able to navigate between the center of town and this exhibition center. But there are some applications out there that traditionally have used very expensive technology in terms of surveying, in terms of construction. They've used very complex, very expensive instruments. There is the emerging capability now by receiving the raw timing signal that a GNSS satellite produces, to use a smartphone to give you that very centimeter precise, accurate location. It's not something you can do instantly at the moment. It needs some post-processing of your signal. But what I see is the potential of a massive disruption in some industries that so far haven't been democratized in that sense, in that you still need very expensive, complicated kit. But there is the potential now for this to be done using much simpler technology that's, you know, mainstream, that's accessible to people. And I think there's many opportunities. If there are investors in the audience looking to want to invest in a space that's developing, this would be it, you know, in terms of precise location determination, just using smartphones.
And this innovation of raw measurements, on which Android operating systems is it available?
Okay, so for this to work, you need the latest version of the Android operating system. So Nougat 7.1 Plus, basically any of the sort of modern smartphones that these guys here are helping you to get access to, has this capability in the Android operating system. It's a level below the APIs that you might normally use if you're building location-aware applications. So it's at the lower level APIs, but it's there. You can pull up the raw data signals and start to manipulate those to give you this precise location.
Kamil, Samsung S8 is one of the first smartphones in the world that integrate Galileo, and so has 4 constellations that could be used simultaneously. What was the reason for that, and what is your experience so far?
So I believe the key reason is innovation, to be at the top, to use the latest technology, and to make it available for you, for everyone, to make use of it. I work at Samsung for 8 years, and I witnessed a lot of innovation, and I remember a lot of new technology that was introduced on Samsung devices. And the GPS, the location, the very accurate position opens possibility for many scenarios, especially for application developers. And the smartphone is just a beginning. I mean, now in the current world, where we have 70% devices that are now connected to the IoT, and in the near future, almost everyone, every kind of device will be connected. We will have endless possibilities, and just imagine drones flying around the world. They need a precise location, and with the special chipset and the operating system and the device that can get access to this data, again, the scenarios are endless. And yeah, that's the key reason, I think. It's all about innovation to I don't know, inspire the world, create the future.
Yesterday you could witness yourself how these new applications are being created. I would like to remind that Samsung is a partner of GSA at the hackathon, the second Galileo hackathon. What was the atmosphere? How did you feel that really these new features are being used?
So the energy during hackathon was very high. The excitement about using the new APIs was also very. The people were interested to use the new, to get to hands-on and try the new APIs. The ideas were not only from the business perspective. Like, for example, I can have my startup, I can use the new API to somehow be different from my competitions, but also how to help people, how to make use of technology to make the world to be a better place.
I see. Manuel, what other innovations you are planning at the chipset side? So we have multi-constellation, soon multi-frequency will be available. What do you think comes next? Is there a limit?
Well, there's no limit. We've been innovating for 15 years in this business. So the latest thing I also wanted to comment is that we're providing these high accuracy signals, L1 and L5, E5, through the Google API for application developers to make use of them in their own way, right? So we use those signals to compute a position ourselves, but we also allow through this Google API application developers to make use of them in the way they consider better, right? That's one thing. We are also supporting another innovation of Google, which is hosting specific location applications in our chip. Generally those like activity recognition, for instance. This is a Google application that makes use of sensors and lets you know what you're doing. I mean, lets the application know what the user is doing. If you're walking, biking, in driving, whatever. So that can either run in the applications processor of the phone, which uses generally quite a bit of power, or it can be pushed down to a low power processor like ours, because we have a low power processor with the GNSS chip too. And this is one of the other things that we're also supporting.
You are all aware that there were some hacking attacks. Now there is a big news around that. You know that Galileo is introducing some specific feature of authentication. So you will be able to check at the application level that the signal is really coming from satellite and that nobody is trying to spoof your location. Is this something that you are considering as well for implementing in the chipsets?
Yeah, absolutely. That's also very important. So in many cases, you have to, I mean, you can compute a position, but that position could be fake or changed by somebody, right? So you have to, it's a very important feature to be able to authenticate that position, especially if that is going to be related to payments or other, things where you can lose money.
So if you have to pay your highway fee or your parking based on your location, you can be tempted to spoof it. So in that case, the authentication feature could be a good new innovation. And Ed, you are known to be a visionary, and you are spending a lot of time going to different conferences to give the vision of the world with high accuracy. And what do you think where this location can be, the high accuracy location can be used in the future? We were speaking here about augmented reality, about location-based advertising. What are the other use cases where we can really make use of it?
I think it's really about user context. It's about understanding people's interactions with the world around them. So as Manuel was saying, the APIs there can identify whether you're walking or whether you're cycling or whether you're in a car. And it's about, understanding how we are interacting with the world more precisely. It was 10 years ago, that the original iPhone was launched, and I've seen a couple of references to that during today. But the very first iPhone, if you remember, didn't have GPS. It didn't have a proper 3G radio, actually. And actually, it wasn't a great success initially. It was only when the iPhone 3G came out that had GPS, that had proper networking capability, that the potential of the smartphone really started to build. And I would argue that the thing that makes a smartphone smart is that it knows where it is and it knows about the world around it. And as we see, as the constellations of satellites come on, the chipset manufacturers get much better, and you know, it's amazing how much better the chips are now at receiving what are very, very weak signals coming from space. You know, the development that's happened over the last 10 years, though it's been largely invisible to us, has gone an enormous distance, so that we reach a point with the world today, with the devices that we carry around, that we will know reliably and quite precisely where we are anywhere in the world, indoors or outside, at any point in time. And that allows us to build products and services that take that information for granted, be it gaming, things like Pokemon Go, be it being able to talk to your device, your smart TV, just because you know the proximity of your mobile phone to that device allows a secure connection to be built between them. I think almost every application that you can imagine and think of as a potential new product or service will have location powering it. And the example I often like to talk to my friends about is saying, well, if you use Inbox as your email client, you can hide email messages that are about work until you get to the office. And your device knows when you're in the office and therefore pulls those messages out. That's a very simple example of where location is being used in all types of different applications. And as the devices become more precise, they become more reliable and more secure, you'll see those new markets emerging that we probably haven't even thought about yet.
Thank you. And knowing that today we have more than 50% in all the application stores that use location, so in Android store, in iPhone store, it's incredible that almost 50% use location. Do you think that buying a new phone or a new car, should we look at the location function? Should it be an important feature to look at?
I think it's always going to be one of those under the hood things, isn't it? It's probably good enough for most applications today. We don't really worry about it. And I know that you brought out the slide and said, look, you know, you need to look at the number of constellations a phone actually is able to receive. That's probably still a little bit of a niche interest to most people. Most people just want to make sure that, you know, it works to pick up Uber or they can get the right maps and so on. But I think for new opportunities, for new markets, that capability is going to become more important. And as I said, perhaps surveying, perhaps in agriculture, where at the moment we are using very complex, very expensive instruments for this location measurement, those instruments themselves will be replaced by things that look like smartphones, or they will look like applications that run on your smartphone. That's one of those points in our history where there's a huge disruption. And this precise location determination using smartphones is one of these points where there's a massive disruption for a new industry sector. And that's very, very exciting. And so for those industries, this is going to be really important.
Manuel, do you have something to add to that?
In case of applications, it's it's important currently, the context awareness. It's important from, for example, artificial intelligence point of view. And this context, I think we can all agree, can decide how your application will operate. Like, for example, this inbox. Like, for example, if you are working in the restricted environment, for example, your camera can be shut down if you are entering the premise of, for example, a factory having some top secret projects. So, again, the scenarios are endless. And we started that the accuracy really matters. And together, I believe, we are able to create accuracy at the level of, I don't know, 30 centimeters. So that kind of accuracy can give us a possibility to redefine how application works.
Well, maybe I just comment that Broadcom as a technology company and as the provider of the chips, of the receivers, is contributing with decoding these complex signals from the satellites, making the measurements available through the APIs that are there, and also trying to do this with as little power as possible, because power usage is of course of key importance. If you may be able to get a fantastic position, but if you use a lot of the battery, then that doesn't work. So that's our main focus together with the accuracy. And we're very proud to say that our next generation, which is sampling now and available for our key customers, is using roughly 50% of the power than the existing generation uses. So that's a big step in the right direction, I think.
Thank you very much. So our time is up. I would like to thank all the panelists for these interesting remarks. And the message is one: there is a lot of things happening. You cannot maybe see it right now, but on your smartphone it's already there. So use better accuracy with less power and follow us in the next events and hackathons. Thank you.